So, good day. My name is Jason Gayle. I'm presenting on my area of focus for this year's Gava Challenge, which has been making the installation for Pattoo and its components flawless. So, on the agenda for today, I'll be giving a brief background of the project, what I learned throughout the period, and some possible future features that could be implemented. So, under the background, I'll be covering the challenges I face while working on the project, the main problem of the project, and the solution that we had developed for the project, which has been the installation. So, some of the challenges I had faced included I had been initially overwhelmed by the code base because it was my first time working on code that has been that large, like especially since it's my first year actually programming. The second issue I had faced was oftentimes the demons for Pattoo would not start, and I had great difficulty in figuring out why, especially since I had not been very familiar with Linux command line until around July in the program. Afterwards, when I finally got installation running, I realized there had been many different results on different machines, which had been a little frustrating at first, but that had allowed me to discover some insights into how I could solve the problem later on in the line. And lastly, for August, when I was Dockerizing the application, it took me a while to get used to and accustomed to Docker, which kind of halted my progress a tiny bit. So now we delve into the problem. So the problems with installation were one, the daemons would generally not start when users install it manually. That's partially mainly due to permission errors. Say the user installed Pattoo to their home directory and the daemons were not owned by the right user, which prevented it from starting. Next was inconsistent. Next was the pip packages. Since oftentimes users would skip installing pip packages, and so that would often cause installation to crash. And later on in the installation, when we started installing manually, well, automatically, we had conflicts with versions, often known as dependency hell, as seen in the diagram here, where application depended on multiple different versions of a package, but we could not really have the same version. So we had to develop something for that. Another issue was the users having way too many steps when installing Pattoo manually. Because initially installation gave the user a lot of freedom for specifying the configuration values where to install the Pattoo projects, which had led to many complications while installing installation. And fourth problem we encountered was since each Pattoo component had their own installation, it had made maintaining the project extremely difficult because if you made one change in one project and you hadn't updated another project, it would often cause something to crash in one of the projects. And the final and most pressing issue was that users generally did not go through documentation when attempting to install Pattoo and its related projects, which had caused all of the above issues to happen. So to solve this, we had mainly done two things. Well, I had mainly done two things over the period of Calico Challenge. So one, the main focus of my Calico period was creating a universal installation for Pattoo in Pattoo Shared that could install all Pattoo components flawlessly. And this had been done by using a virtual environment and a decent amount of bash scripting to ensure that users could just install Pattoo with one command and that's it, it would run perfectly. And the highlight of my Calc experience had been creating a Docker component container for all of the Pattoo components. Since Dockerizing Pattoo and its related projects would make each machine have the same results for the installation, So if something went wrong with installation, it would be a lot easier to troubleshoot where the issues stem from. So now I'll delve into what I learned over the period. So the two main things I learned were two new development processes and a number of new technologies. So the first new development process I learned had been documentation driven development, where whenever I wrote code, I would focus on documenting at the same time, iteratively, and improving on my documentation to ensure that future developers that are using the project would know why something is doing what it does and how to troubleshoot issues. And the other approach I had learned through the Calico challenge, had been test-driven design, which had been centered around Travis CI, a platform for continuous integration. So this is an iterative process where as you develop, you write the unit tests for the project, and if the test fails, you end up refactoring the code until the test passes. And oftentimes I tested this in Travis CI to ensure that it would work consistently on multiple machines. So now into technologies. Technologies that I learned through Kafka Challenge had included Travis CI, continuous integration. I had improved my knowledge in Python. I had been exposed to some GraphQL, and I had been exposed to using Docker for making containers for applications. So lastly, I'll be delving into the future features for Pattoo and one bonus feature. So firstly, is developing Pattoo into Travis CI. Well, creating a live instance of Pattoo in Travis. So this would allow for the range of unit tests to increase, as currently it's close to impossible to test the system daemons on Travis while preserving most of the um, environment variables that we require for regular unit testing. Since normal unit tests are run as a regular user, and to test system daemons, we need to run it as a pseudo user. So the other future feature that I had thought for Pattoo had been using machine learning to make predictions for the charts. So this could help with providing a more accurate depiction of the time series data and to assist enterprise users with getting a more in-depth prediction of their use metrics for their time series data. And lastly, the bonus feature that we had in mind was deploying Pattoo to an AWS server using Docker. Since we have a container for Pattoo now, we'd be able to easily deploy it onto an AWS server so that we would not need to run it on our host machines and to also improve the efficiency of installation. So that's the end of my presentation. Now I open the floor for any questions.